Okay, I'm going to be showing you and talking about this particular revolver here, which is the Ruger Blackhawk with 7.5-inch barrel, chambered in .45 Colt. That's the revolver cartridge, just for anyone wanting to know, not the .45 auto. I'm not going to call it the .45 long Colt because, contrary to what a lot of people call it, there is no such cartridge. It's just .45 Colt, period. And first off, since I am safety conscious, I'm going to show you that it is unloaded. So I'm going to open the loading gate, which locks down the hammer in this particular gun. That's safe, and I'm going to show that it is indeed unloaded before I do anything, because I'm going to be manipulating it a little bit. And you can see in this cylinder, and rotate it, and you can see daylight in each cylinder hole. So all 6 cylinder holes that are unloaded. So this gun is unloaded, so I can handle it the way I like now, since I've shown that. I can tell you a little bit about it. It's, anyone who doesn't know anything about the Blackhawk, it was Bill Ruger's modern update on the old Colt Single Action Army revolver. Mainly with in modern metallurgy, investment castings, beefier frame, just a stronger gun all the way around, much stronger than the old Colt Single Action Army. In fact, the video that you've seen me on YouTube firing this, if you haven't seen it already, I'm firing powerful loads in this that are right on the heels of .44 Magnum in terms of power. The .45 Colt, even in a modern gun like this, or a Thompson Center Contender, or a Colt Anaconda, or I believe Ruger may still make the Red Hawk also available in this caliber. Those guns and this gun, you can use really stiff loads. In terms of rifles, I have a rifle that can also handle the powerful loads. That's my Marlin 1894. I took my first year of that this year. One modern gun that you cannot use those loads in, just for anyone wanting to know, and I tell you this for safety purposes, is a Smith & Wesson Model 25, which is the .45 Colt version of their double action revolver on the end frame, which means it's the same size gun as the Model 29. In fact, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference just glancing at the two. But the Model 25 Smith & Wesson does not have a heat-treated frame the way the Model 29, which is the .44 Magnum that they make, does. So that's why you can't shoot quite as powerful a load in it as you can in this. Plus, the Model 29 is more expensive because of all the extra work they put into it. So you still can't quite outdo a .44 Magnum even in a modern gun like this, because the main limitation with .45 Colt, you can up the power, you know, when a strong gun if you want, but is the case. The case walls in .45 Colt are not as thick as they are in a .44 Magnum. So it was a gun that was designed for the pressure levels of the day. You can do very well with it. Even the loads that are safe in single action army, which almost every factory load you'll find will be. If you want a factory load that's more powerful, you're going to have to buy Corbon or something like that, or Buffalo Bore, or what is it, Double Tap, something like that, or hand load, which is what I do. In fact, I haven't bought a factory load for this gun, or really any of my centerfire guns, in over a decade. It's actually been closer to 20 years now, because I have hand loading equipment I have had since I was in the Navy, and I don't need to buy factory loads. I just make my own. I make better ammo, and I make it cheaper. And I enjoy making it. So anyway, I'm done talking about that. I'm going to show you just how this gun loads and how it ejects really quickly. Anybody who's unfamiliar with the double action, or anyone who's used to the single action army type guns but not used to the Ruger type guns, how they load, you don't have a swing out cylinder the way you do in a double action revolver. You have a loading gate, and that's how it you have to load it one at a time. You can't load them all at once. It just opens up, and then if you look, you can see inside the cylinder holes the way I showed you earlier. And then you just what you do is you just index it by hand, and you load your cartridge, and then you index it and you load your cartridge until you've got all 6 in. And in this gun you can safely load 6, by the way, unlike the single action army if you were going to carry it. You know, the wisdom with the single action army is only load 5 if you're going to carry, and load 6 only if you're going to be at the range and you're going to shoot all 6, you know, not leaving, because you don't want to rest the hammer on an empty chamber on a Colt single action, because the gun can accidentally fire with that old design gun. The Ruger has a transfer bar, so even if you have a loaded round under the hammer, no matter how hard you drop this gun on its hammer, it cannot accidentally fire. So that's a nice modern update on it as well. Also, I wanted to show you in order to eject it, unlike a double action revolver, you swing when you swing the cylinder out again to empty it, you just hit one ejector rod and they all pop out at once. This one, you have this right here, the ejector rod, which is spring loaded. If you look closely, you can see the end of the ejector rod pushing out right through where the loading gate is that's open. What that does is it just pushes into the case and gets it out. And if you push the ejector rod hard enough, the case will pop out of there pretty quickly. You won't even need to touch it. Or if you're like me, you just push it gently and get it just right where you can get a hold of the case and grab the rim and then pull it away and put it in the box to reload again. So anyway, that's it. And of course, being a single action revolver, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, but this gun can only be fired by thumb cocking the hammer with each shot. You have to pull the hammer back to full cock, squeeze the trigger, and it fires. So I'll do one dry fire since I proved it was empty. And it is safe to do that in this gun. It won't break anything. Whereas with the double action, of course, you can squeeze the trigger, the cylinder indexes while at the same time the hammer comes back until you get the trigger to its most rearward travel, and then the hammer comes forward and it fires. Whereas this one, you have to do that each time. So anyway, that's how this works. Next, I'm going to show you the sight rail and also the sight itself. The sight rail is an adapter. It's sold by Weaver. It's really nice. It's a Weaver type rail, of course. It's a company name. And the way you install it is you have to remove the rear sight first. And in order to do that, you don't really need a special tool except a 1/32 inch punch, which is hard to get a hold of. You can get them at Harbor Freight. That's where I found the one I used. And you punch out the pin that holds on the rear sight. You can see that tiny hole there. It's about the diameter of a paper clip. You carefully slide out that pin, then remove the rear sight, and that's it. Which you only need a screwdriver to remove it the rest of the way. And then this sight rail here that you put on its place screws down in the hole where the sight was. And then this part right here, if you can see it, is a yoke that fits around the rear of the barrel, and that anchors the front end of this sight rail. And then the sight rail has two notches on it for installing any devices. I'm talking about the recoil slots, that is. There's one here you can't see, and then this one you can. Of course, I'm not engaging the rear one. This particular side, of course, I'm going to show you by turning it, is, so you can see the label on it. It is the Leaper's 40mm red-green dot. I originally bought this gun to deer hunt back in the 80s, when the only way you could use a cartridge gun that wasn't a shotgun, that is, to hunt deer was if you used a handgun. And that would happen. I think that in my state they made it legal to hunt deer with a handgun only in either the early or mid 1980s. And I bought this when I was still in the Navy at the time. It was about 1988 at that time. As I recall, I paid between $200 and $250 for this revolver then, brand new. And I think now that you can't get this particular configuration of this revolver for less than $600. I'm not sure, but it's many times more expensive than when I originally bought it. But I put this sight on here because unfortunately I'm getting older, and it's harder and harder for me to use iron sights, and it's much easier for me to use a red-green dot. So anyway, that's why I bought this. Of course, just to show you the main components, you've got the windage adjustment there, which is under this cap, and elevation under there, and then this right here, this dial up here, adjusts the brightness and the color of the dot, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And it's also got nice flip-up caps to protect the sight, the glass, the objective, and the eyepiece. So I'm going to show you what the dot looks like first by turning it on. I'm going to show you the red first. Okay, and then you can see down the tube now, and then I'll flip it on. And yes, you can see the dot right there. There's that red dot, and I can even adjust the brightness. I don't think I can hold it steady enough to show you, but yeah, I guess so. You can see it still being adjusted. And then off. It's the off position. It uses a little coin cell for like the type of battery used in a computer, 2032 battery. And I'm going to show you the green dot. Is it on green? Not yet. It's still on red. And there's off. And there's green. If I can see it again. Yeah, you can still see green. Anyway, the green, in my experience, is that it's better for low light. The red's better for bright light, so if the sun's up pretty high, I turn the red on and then I can adjust its brightness. Green's much nicer for low light levels for some reason. It just seems to work better. So it's nice to have that choice. I can hit very well with this sight, by the way. It allows me to acquire my target faster and be more accurate. So it was a worthy addition. Nice thing about it too is the standard screws, it's built into the sight itself. You don't have a separate set of rings the way you do with a lot of dot sights. They're built into this one. And only the front clamp here engages the recoil slot on the base, which is nice because if this one also engaged the slot, it'd be much harder to align it. I wouldn't work on this because the recoil slots that are on this Weaver base that I put on here, the adapter that I was just telling you about before I talked about the sight, I wouldn't be able to align this particular one on here without having to actually take a Dremel tool and create my own recoil slot, which is an ugly fix. So that's a nice thing about this sight. So if you're wondering if it'll work on your rifle with its Weaver base, it definitely will, because that only holds on the one clamp engages the recoil slot, and the other one doesn't. It just, the rear one back here only clamps on and just anchors the whole thing. So it's just as secure, but the nice thing is it'll work on any Weaver base, and it'll even work on a Picatinny rail that way too. So you don't have to worry about that. So you have your choice. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to tell you about it. I was going to show you the stocks I put on it. Well, some people call them grips. I call them the stocks. These are the, I believe, yeah, you can still buy these. These are Pachmayr presentation grips. They're made of rubber, and they're really nice. They made it much easier for me to hold on to this gun. I have very big hands, and the factory Ruger stocks, which are made of, I believe, Goncalves alves, just weren't quite big enough for my hands. Plus, they were a little slick, hard to get a good grasp of the gun. And the nice thing about these Pachmayrs is they are much more hand filling. They fill my hand up much better. So they're bigger, and being rubber, they're also easier to hold on to. So when I'm shooting the stiff loads that you see me shooting in the video out of this, it makes it easier to handle the gun. Of course, the sight on top also makes it easier to handle, but even without the sight, I'm not afraid of this gun with the most powerful loads I can put in it. I've shot 300 grain spear soft points out of it, loaded to the maximum that the loading manuals recommend, and it doesn't scare me a bit. I mean, it makes a loud noise, but it doesn't hurt a bit. But it's a fun gun to shoot. The only thing else I was going to show you, a couple other things. Show you one of my factory loads. This is a discontinued load right here. One of the loads I've got. This is a full power load too. It's a now discontinued bullet made by Nosler. It's a Partition handgun gold. They don't make them anymore, but it's a Partition bullet, 250 grain. So I have that. Once I shoot that, it'll be going forever because they don't make them anymore. And my shoulder holster I bought for it. And I can just put the whole gun in here. Nice thing about this one is it will accommodate this sight, which my old shoulder holster doesn't, unfortunately. My old shoulder holster, believe it or not, I don't think this is the ideal choice for it, but I can actually conceal this gun, which is 13.5 inches long from the front of the barrel to the end of the grip right there, believe it or not. But I'm 6'4", so I can do that. And I can actually, in that old vertical shoulder holster, without this sight, of course, I can carry it. But I can actually carry this gun carried that way. So that's an interesting thing. And that's really about it.